Hello again, and welcome to Looking at Social Justice. It's my privilege every single week to bring to you something about social justice here in the Valley, but not often do I get to have someone so young on the show that they need permission from their parent. Today we have that joy. We have a student, but we also have a program manager from a program that I didn't know anything about 2 weeks ago. It's called Youth Leadership Institute. So I'd like our two guests, beginning with LJ Mariano and Kasandra Tate, to self-introduce and tell us just a little bit about themselves before we talk for 30 minutes about the wonderful organization, this wonderful institute that you manage and you are such a member of. Begin, LJ.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you, Jim. Again, my name is LJ Mariano. My gender pronouns are he, him, his. I've been a program manager with the Youth Leadership Institute for about a year, so not even that long. I've been a program coordinator with them for about going on 6 years almost. I've been engaged working with young people for almost 10 years before I even jumped into youth advocacy work as a youth minister in Fresno at a local church. When I felt ready to jump into a new level of youth engagement, that's where I stumbled across Youth Leadership Institute, or YLI. It was just a new opportunity to engage with leadership and young people engaging in their community in ways that I would only hope for, and now I get to do it, and it's great. I love it.
It's great, and you have someone here that's going to represent the greatness of youth. Kasandra, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of why you're here today.
Well, hi, my name is Kasandra Tate. I'm currently a senior this year at Central East High School, state champs, yay. The reason why I'm here is because I am under the umbrella of YLI, which is Youth Leadership Institute, and I have been a part of MYNT, which is Mobilizing Youth, Nix Tobacco. And so I've been a part of that program for ever since August, probably August or September. And it's just to educate youth about the dangers here in Fresno within our community about tobacco and the dangers and the harm that it does to everyone.
I am so glad that I got this call from LJ saying, someone said we should be on your show. And I am really glad that it's the beginning of a connection with YLI. Well, let's spend 3 minutes now learning about this wonderful institute and why all of our viewers and listeners are going to want to become involved in it.
The Youth Leadership Institute gives the youth a voice, definitely, because I remember when I was so much younger, I didn't think I had one at all, until someone came up and reminded me, hey, what about you? What do you have to say? What do you have to bring to the table? And no one's ever asked me that before. Me and a couple other youth leaders got together to reduce alcohol usage in the youth. And a way to do that was to just simply reduce alcohol advertisements. So we thought of a couple ways to just reduce that. Talk to store clerks to offer alternative solutions. We talked to city council members. We even made it in the local newspaper. It was really cool.
There was times where I felt like, my voice didn't matter, or no one really wasn't listening. The Youth Leadership Institute is important because it provides a number amount of just people that just care about you and care about your cause and what you're fighting for. When the app is finished, we should have all our air quality monitors put up at the schools in Fresno. Anytime you want to know the air quality in your area, pretty much just pull up the app. It will display the air quality, the temperature, the average of that day, the suggestions, and more info. Knowledge is power. I think my project equips my community with knowledge. Always good for another youth to see a youth engaged in the community. It's just pretty much a spark of flame under their seat. I'm saying it's powerful. they find out what they love and they find like they have a real passion for it, and they just pretty much engage into that specific subject and go full-heartedly engage into it, the sky is the limit.
Aside from just like skills, the Youth Leadership Institute has provided me with many opportunities. This opportunity to me, it gives me a sense of purpose and belonging because I have the knowledge and I have experience and stories. And I know that if I have this opportunity to help those around me who weren't lucky enough to be given the resources, I can be the one to step up and make the difference.
It's important for youth to be involved in their communities because we're the next generation.
What more can you tell us about this, LJ? Introduce us more detail about just what YLI is, the umbrella that it really covers, and some of the exciting projects such as the ones we saw on alcohol reduction, on the environment, doing that work that Kishan is doing. Tell us more about this wonderful YLI.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for those who are unfamiliar with YLI, it was founded in 1989. So YLI is almost 30 years old, over 30 years old. And in that time, we've served over 90,000 young people across California, solving different social issues, serving their communities, and in ways that are innovative, are looking through a social justice lens, engages the community, and is always inclusive. In the video, it highlighted one of our young people, Keyshawn, who embraced technology and advocacy, and in the context of the Central Valley. And so he's measuring air quality and the health impact that it has on the population. And so it's a way to collect data in a way that's not just a pen and paper. It's looking at it real time, and it's a way that's happening now. People will understand, like, oh, if you have an app, that's access to something that someone can get a hold of. So YLI, we do community-based work throughout California. We're in Marin, Merced, Fresno, Los Angeles, Riverside, San Francisco, and San Mateo counties. And so across that, there are 70 cohorts where YLI are serving almost 2,000 young people, ages ranging from like 12 to 26 years old a week. One thing that we like to highlight, and that's important, that a lot of the young people that we serve identify as young people of color, and also young people who live in low-income communities. And it's on purpose that we work with young people who identify with the marginalized or the other, because it's a larger population. I identify with that population. In a lot of cases, it feels that society isn't working for us, it's working against us. And so why not be inviting, open up the doors, open up the table to allow young people to enter into those conversations. So, and the beauty of it, which what we love, is that the young people that enter into these spaces are 21st century young people of America, meaning this, like, they are well informed and they are articulate. They're unafraid to speak up and share how they're really feeling or how they really see how things are going around them. And they are regular people. They know that regular people have the power to form movements and create impact that to develop policies and societal norms that'll transform it for the better. One of the amazing ways that we have seen our young people just engage and develop new programs or new initiatives. I think initiatives that kind of communicates it more, that it's something that our young people like feel like an urge to be a part of. So whether it's like their personal faith or they even identify with the issue because it deeply impacts them. They identify with those things, and they feel with a conviction to see solution happen through advocating, through engaging other folks who are just like them into deep conversation, building relationships with folks in the community, getting out there, collecting data, really getting into the know of what it is to see communities transform.
Kasandra, we did talk about this before the program. Tell everyone how you got personally invited in, how it was that you became aware of YLI at school. How did that happen?
Well, I am in BSU, which is Black Student Union, and so I was invited. Actually, they actually came to our meetings, one of our officer meetings. An officer meeting is just where we have all of our officers of BSU come and we meet and we talk about the club and what we can do to improve the club. And they actually came to our meeting and they just told us about their new program that had just started. They said that it was new, that they wanted youth to be involved, and they wanted to hear our voices. And so we were interested because as officers, you know, we're leaders. And so it really just drew us. We weren't really educated. Well, for me personally, I wasn't educated about the dangers of tobacco. You know, you grow up and you're like, okay, don't smoke because it's bad for you. You just hear things like that. But you don't really know the harms or the specific dangers that it can do to your body and to your community. And so that's why I joined the program. And honestly, since I've been with YLI and MYNT, I've learned so much and I've been so involved in my community than I ever would have been if I didn't join this program.
So about MYNT is Mobilizing Youth
Yes.
to Nix Tobacco.
Yes.
What more can you tell us about that particular program? It's how old it is, how many people are engaged in it, and what basically you do about it. How do you make MYNT work?
Well, basically, we are a program that focuses mainly on the dangers of tobacco within all communities, but we do want to focus on communities of color more, just because they're advertised to the communities of color more. Like I had said earlier, specifically in the African American communities, you know, there's a liquor store on every corner. If you live in low income communities, and that's where most African Americans and people of color live, and so it's such easy access just to get cigarettes or drugs or anything of that manner, alcohol. And so we, as a program, we have youth who come for middle school, high school, and we meet on Tuesdays and we just talk about how can we reach out and educate and bring awareness to those communities and to other youth who are like us who have open access to get tobacco anywhere, and tell them, hey, this isn't good for you, Black lives, Black lungs. You know, how do we educate it? How do we make it aware? How do we bring awareness? But how do we make it to where it's transparent? We don't want to just make it seem boring. You know, we want to educate them by making them seem interested, you know, and knowing more about what the actual dangers can be.
LJ, it looks like Kasandra actually is personally committed to this. Evidently, somebody made a good pitch about the importance of what YLI does and what MYNT's all about. Tell us a little bit about the history of tobacco, which targets basically everybody, but particularly the African American community.
Yeah.
There's a historical record.
No, absolutely. I think what's really interesting about that question is that there's a point in the conversation that can be easily missed, other than just like dates. So I kind of mentioned earlier, like one of our values is social justice, and so in our presentation, when we're connecting or recruiting young people to be engaged in this issue, be a part of the solution for tobacco reform, we got to go into it with a social justice lens. And so what we're calling out are a number of things. First, to put it into context, when we're saying tobacco, we're not talking about ceremonial tobacco that the First Nation tribes use for medicinal use or for other ceremonies. We're talking about commercial tobacco. So it's the stuff you see in cigarettes and cigars, cigarillos, chewing tobacco, all the stuff that you see now that has a mixture of other chemical junk to get people hooked onto it. And so Well, the history in there is that it was around like the 1920s, 1930s when menthol was first introduced as part of the cigarette, and then that blew up in the 50s and 60s. So some of the context to add into that was the experiences to get that product out there and how the tobacco industry would either market themselves to appeal to a group. And so that's where things get a little icky. I'll say icky.
Tobacco.
In that the tobacco industry was very specific on knowing how to target the community. So a lot of earlier photos or ads were very racist and inappropriate, and they were used to market to the African American community. And there are even documents from the top dogs in the tobacco industry, legal documents, to where they'll say that if you move your product, the tobacco products, into these communities of color, African Americans are more likely to purchase it. So just push product down that way, and then what we do know is that it benefited them. And the thing about that is over time, menthol became, with other factors, like the cigarette for the African American community, and it has made it harder for folks to break addiction. Menthol is actually the hardest of all flavored tobacco products. That makes it hard to break addiction, break free from it. I think the other way that I even say, it's not just like throw that in there, but the industry infiltrated the culture, whether it's the community, like Kasandra said it really well, in that being even like in our own backyard, in like Southwest Fresno, or in like Southeast Fresno. If you go to a convenience store, you'll see more than one. If you look to the left or to the right, chances are you'll see discounted cigarette products. In contrast to other parts of our city, more affluent parts of the city, you're not going to see that. And so something that dated like years ago, before I even we were even around, there was already something that was set in place to make things harder for communities of color. And so what we're doing by mobilizing young people is to engage into that conversation, call it out. It's not just saying, hey, stop smoking. It's more so to like, can we get into the deeper conversation into why people are smoking in the first place?
There are, I think you were telling me, images are just, there's like real publicity that shows that though we've moved in time, the approach with the way we advertise is still with that target. It's a clear target. Can you say more about that? I think we have some, like these images that we have probably seen that remind us it's a constant goal to sell to the African American community.
Yeah, it's almost like, are you living in like deja vu? Like, have I seen this before? And so there are images that are out there where you see them in magazines. We're actually looking at one right now where it's the exact same theme. It's a birthday theme. Nobody's smoking cigarettes in this clip, but there's an African American couple and there's a Caucasian couple. They're both celebrating birthday. It was kind of funny. Like, no one's seeing this. Listeners aren't seeing this, but they're like, the African American family has a vanilla cake, and then for some reason, like the Caucasian family has a chocolate cake. I don't know. That's tobacco industry for you, I guess. But nobody is smoking a cigarette. However, it's a Newport ad.
Yeah.
Like, does that make any sense? If we just took away the tobacco, can it just be a birthday? Right? So these are some examples of what we're seeing like with the tobacco industry. And like it's a little dated, but we do know, like when I say like deja vu, hey, I've seen this before. So we know that culturally and fashion-wise, like the 90s is coming back.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But we know that the industry, they spend about $1 million an hour, tobacco industry, in ads to get young people hooked on their products. And so there are images that are just being recycled. So it's the same game in which the tobacco industry have used They're just presenting it differently. And the way that they're doing it, it's very schemish, and they're out there just blatant about it, just to push their product. And it's weird. When you start looking at it differently, when you start looking at the different ads, if you just took away the tobacco product, it would just look like a regular ad. You don't think anything of it. But we do know that the more and more that you associate a certain image with the other, after time it becomes a norm, which is one thing that we want to speak into. So if I'm enjoying myself, I'm having a good time already, do I have to have a Juul? Well, that's where we can exist in, or a vaping product. That's where we can jump into the conversation. Why can't you just like enjoy yourself, enjoy your life?
Addressing the problem seems to be where we did want to bring the program. Mobilizing young people to lead change. How are you accomplishing that?
Well, for starters, like I said earlier, I've never been this involved or aware about the tobacco dangers in my community, or I had just had no thought of doing it. Like I said, I always was just told, don't smoke because it's just bad for you. But I never knew why it was bad for me. And so I've stepped up a lot during these past months of just educating, bringing awareness not only to my school, but I know we've done outreach programs. We've also had workshops. Held. A showcase. We had a showcase a couple months ago, and we were able to throw in education as well into the showcase about tobacco and MYNT and who we are. And so just those little things, we're just stepping up, and allowing myself to use my voice and to say, hey, look at this isn't right, and this is why, and just taking the steps from there.
What about legislation at a local level? Are you in some sort of dialogue with some city council and other leaders?
We do know that there are some champions at the local level. I think that one thing to know is that you'll see stuff in the news on the federal level or in the state level that things are moving forward. But what we do know is that folks that are on the ground floor, we can't wait for something to happen. Things have to happen now. And so part of like our role as young people engaging in this conversation is them being in relationship or having conversations with their council members. So we do know at a local level we have to engage in that way and create policies that best support the needs of our community members.
We've got about 5 minutes, so we want to make sure items that we hope to talk about we bring up. One thing we might want to do to make sure it goes up, how do people get in touch with YLI? How do they find out, like from a website, from Instagram, from Twitter, from Facebook? How will they become connected to your project?
Awesome. So if you want to go on our website, Youth Leadership Institute, you can go to www.yli.org. If you are using social media platforms, we are on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Definitely still.
Yeah, we're still there. That's for the older generation. But you can follow us at MYNT_CV or at YL Institute. That's for both our MYNT program and for YLI. And then you can also email me at lmariano@yli.org.
What is it that they'll probably find on that website? Or what are some things we knew we did want to talk about that we didn't quite cover the way we meant to?
I think the big picture thing that I don't want to miss is that there is a phrase that I didn't coin, but has been a vision for California, which is Endgame 2035. It is this: after we've done all the policies, after we've banned the selling of menthol tobacco, what is this new life of California to where we can breathe free? One of our mentors and partners through Amplify, which is the African American Coordinating Center, they provide support throughout the entire state through other programs like MYNT, who are working with the African American community. Carol Magruder, she oversees that, she leads that. She is queen, in my opinion, to tobacco advocacy. But she said one day, and this was before I can remember, she said one day I went to bed and the Berlin Wall was up. The next day I woke up and then it was down. She uses that analogy to remind us that, hey, like right now we're in a fight for a tobacco-free California. And it is possible. They say that the Titanic was unsinkable. Some say the tobacco industry is too big. But what we do know is that over time there have been successes. We know that over time that our health matters more than profit. And that's the message that we're trying to carry out. That's the message that other partners in tobacco advocacy here in the Central Valley are fighting for, and this is our part in doing it.
What is it that you hope our viewers and our listeners, our podcast listeners and our YouTube and TV viewers, what's your hope? LJ and Kasandra, what do you hope to happen because of what you're doing? Concretely, how do we join you in that effort?
Is there?
I'll go.
All right.
Well, first, before anyone makes any decisions, honestly, if you could just listen. You might already have in your head, I'm not going to die from this. It can't do that much harm. You know, people have their opinions already set up. Just listen to what it can do. Because listening, you know, don't always say what you think you want to say. You might learn something, you know. And so that's what happened to me personally. I didn't know. I just knew it was bad, like I said. Didn't know anything else. And so now I'm just opened up to, wow, like this can have so much long-lasting effect after you do it, you know, after you get hooked, after you get addicted. There's so much, you know, mental pain, so much, you know, physical pain, and you're not only hurting yourself, you're hurting people that love you, you know. And so just think before you act upon, and get educated before you decide to do something. I think that's the number one thing that I've learned.
LJ, 20 seconds.
Listen to the young people. Just listen to the young people. Listen to their perspective. Listen to their opinions. Listen to where we're at. It doesn't mean you have to do everything that they say. Just listen. They're partners.
We are going to listen to more people from Youth Leadership Institute. We're going to get Keyshawn White to be a guest who was featured in the clip. We're going to do more connection, and we're going to have people do what Kasandra and LJ have said, to listen, become educated, and decide that we will work for a tobacco-free California. Thank you very much. Till next time, God bless.